I dare you guys to change my mind. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are repeating as AFC South champs. Welcome into Jags Now, presented by Chat Sports. I am your host, Cullen Brown. We are presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. And on today's episode, I'm going through each and every one of the Jaguars games in 2026 and going to predict if they're going to win or lose said games. And let's just go right into the schedule. We'll just kind of rehash here before we get into the actual predictions. Starting off in week 1, you're hosting the Cleveland Browns before traveling on the road in week 2 against the Denver Broncos. You then face the AFC reigning champs, the New England Patriots, in week 3 before taking on Joe Burrow and the Bengals during week 4 on the road. Then you've got 2 London games against the Philadelphia Eagles and those Houston Texans before you get that week 7 bye. Then it follows up with a week 8 game against the Indianapolis Colts at home before traveling to Baltimore on Thursday Night Football to take on the Ravens. You've got 2 games in 3 weeks against the Tennessee Titans, split between a Giants game on the road there in week 11. Week 13 at the Chicago Bears. It's going to be a tough one. 2 former number 1 overall picks and Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence going up against each other before going against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football. At Houston in week 15, at Dallas on Sunday Night Football. That should be a really good game. And then rounding it out with a game at home versus the Commanders, and then on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. So we're going to go through each one of these games, but before we get into it, guys, thank you guys so much for all the support you guys have been giving on the channel. And hey, listen, we're not stopping here. There's some people, after the schedule releases, they're going to take some time off. They're going to be kind of sitting there, getting prepped behind the scenes for when the season kicks up back again in August, September. Not us. We're going to be bringing you coverage all year long, 365 days a year. If you want the best coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. All right, getting into week 1, Cleveland going into Jacksonville. The infamous Travis Hunter trade, as a lot of Jags fans and Browns fans are kind of familiar with. I have the Jaguars winning this one pretty handily. I'm not really sure who's going to be the week 1 starter, whether it's going to be Deshaun Watson, whether it's going to be Shedeur Sanders. To me, it really doesn't matter in this one. I think the Jaguars are the more complete team. I respect Myles Garrett. He obviously had a great season last year for the Cleveland Browns, but I just think the overall talent for Jacksonville, they're at a different stage in their kind of progression as a football team than Cleveland is right now. And Cleveland did have, I think, a pretty good solid offseason, but they've got a lot of young contributing pieces that I just don't think week 1 right away are going to be able to compete with a team like Jacksonville. I have the Jaguars starting off 1-0. Moving into week number 2 on the road in Mile High. This was a pretty big game for the Jaguars last year in terms of kind of their playoff seeding, but also establishing themselves as one of the AFC's elite. And you're going into Denver. They added Jalen Waddle. A lot of the same faces you'll see in Denver will be in this game. I actually have the Jaguars falling to the Denver Broncos here in week number 2. It's a tough matchup, right? I think Jalen Waddle is going to give the Denver Broncos kind of a different element in terms of their offense and playmaking to go alongside Courtland Sutton. Bo Nix, we'll see how he kind of looks like, but I think Sean Payton's one of those offensive minds that's going to get the Broncos going early, and it's going to be tough to win in Mile High in September. Those elevated elements, the Jaguars did it last year, but I think this time around, Denver is going to have the upper advantage. I have Denver winning this one. Before now, heading into week number 3, taking on the New England Patriots, and their offseason's been full of drama, whether it's A.J. Brown trade rumors or whether their head coach may or may not have had an affair with a former NFL insider. You guys know the deal if you've been on social media, but I actually have the Jaguars taking care of business against the New England Patriots. I have the Jaguars now advancing to 2-1 on the season. Whether they get A.J. Brown or not, I just think there's going to be a lot of internal conflict, and I don't think this team is as tight-knit as they were last year. I mean, we all know the memes, right? The schedule, Drake May, he kind of took advantage of a kind of lower-level schedule compared to other teams. I think they kind of regress back to the mean this year. They're closer to maybe 9 or 10 wins, and I think the Jaguars have the upper hand going up against the New England Patriots. I have them winning and going 2-1. We'll get into the rest of the games and what my overall prediction is for the Jaguars this upcoming season, but I could not do today's show if it wasn't for our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. The playoffs are here for basketball, baseball is underway, and it's time to cash in with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app and is the best place to win cash while watching sports. If you're a hoops guy, you can go with points, rebounds, assists, blocks, or three-pointers. If you're more of a seam head, you can choose hits, home runs, or strikeouts. The app is really easy to use. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. For example, I've got a season-long Prize Picks lineup that I'm rolling with this upcoming season. Give me the more on Emeka Egbuka's receiving yards. I think with Mike Evans no longer in Tampa Bay, he is going to feast. And Bashal Tutin, with Travis Etienne departing this offseason, I think he is going to be fed the rock a lot. Give me the more on his rushing yards this upcoming year. This is a $20 lineup to win $60. New user offer. Download the Prize Picks app today with the link in the comments and the description and use code HMA. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Let's go to HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Getting into the rest of the schedule now, we've got Week 4. Cincinnati Bengals on the road. They added Dexter Lawrence. This team's always a threat with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and the crew. But I got the Jaguars pulling it off and going 3-1 to start off the season. We know the history with the Cincinnati Bengals. They do not tend to start off the season well for whatever reason in the Joe Burrow era. And I just think that if you're the Jaguars, you've got to be able to steal more than just one of these games that's kind of stretched in the opening part of the season if you want to get off to that good start. And I do think they are equipped to do that going up against Cincinnati. I think that they've made some really good, defensive additions, Dexter Lawrence being kind of the main one there. Didn't necessarily love their draft, but I do think that they are trending in the right direction. And you can never fully count out Joe Burrow, but I think from a team perspective, Anthony Campanelli will be able to do just enough for Liam Cohen, Trevor Lawrence in the offense to put up enough points to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Give me 3-1 Jaguars heading in to London, where they will have back-to-back weeks in London. First off, against the Philadelphia Eagles, who this will be at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, England. But I think the Jaguars are ultimately going to fall here in their first London matchup against Philadelphia. Look, they didn't have the greatest year last year coming off of the Super Bowl win that they won 2 years ago. I think that they are going to have a slight, as we talked earlier, slight regression for the New England Patriots. I think the Eagles are going to have a little bit more wins, kind of have a bounce-back year. And I do have the Jaguars falling to Philadelphia. Yes, they could look to trade A.J. Brown, and from a talent perspective, they won't be as loaded. But I think that could be addition by subtraction in order to let some of the Eagles' pass-catching weapons, such as Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and some of the others, gain more options to get some targets down the field. And I think it'll only be beneficial just to kind of have that out of the building. And I think it's going to be beneficial for Philadelphia. So give me the Eagles to win this Week 5 matchup. Then you've got the Houston Texans in a default home game and against a divisional opponent. I don't necessarily love this. I wish this was a non-AFC South matchup for the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. You knew you were going to have to play 2 London games, and the NFL did acquiesce in getting you a bye week after this, but to have the Texans come into London, this time at Wembley Stadium, I think is going to be no easy feat. But I got the Jaguars taking care of business. They'll already have a week already in London, overseas, kind of getting used to acclimated, not having to have that jet lag and everything that the Houston Texans might. So I think the Jaguars actually pull this one off. And I think that if you ask any Jaguars fan who is going to be the biggest threat in the AFC South, I still lean the Texans. They massively improved their offensive line. Their defense is still one of the best in the National Football League. The question is can C.J. Stroud live up to the rest of the team's talent? I do think they're going to be formidable this year, but I got the Jaguars holding it down and getting to 4-2 before heading into the bye week. But speaking of, fill in the blank for me. The Jaguars will win blank games before the bye week in 2026. I gave you my prediction of 4 wins. I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments section. So after the bye week in Week 7, that leads you into Week 8 against the Indianapolis Colts. Another AFC South matchup. You get that bye week. You get that extra time to prepare against Shane Steichen. This, to me, is a no-brainer. I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking care of business. And Daniel Jones and company, I think, last year got the benefit of, hey, we didn't necessarily know what their offense was going to look like. Tyler Warren got off to a really good start. Jonathan Taylor was damn near the MVP of the league for the first 8 or 9 weeks of the season. This time around, I don't think it's going to be the same level of success early on for Indianapolis, and especially given Jacksonville's rest advantage, I have them winning this game off the bye week, improving to 5-2, and really sitting in a good spot in the AFC. But then you get to week number 9. Thursday Night Football on the road against the Ravens, short week. This one I do not have going in Jacksonville's favor. I got them losing, unfortunately, to Baltimore on Thursday Night Football. The Ravens are really improved this year. Lamar Jackson now under new head coach Jesse Minter. I think the defense is going to have a new rejuvenated sense of energy. You bring over Declan Doyle, who was the former offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. He will be calling plays for Baltimore. I think it's going to be a benefit for Lamar Jackson and crew And I'm not saying Jacksonville has no shot in this game, but it's a really tough spot given a short week on the road in Baltimore against one of the AFC's elite. I think part of the reason the Ravens didn't do as well last year was all the injuries that they suffered. You got to imagine that kind of corrects itself over the course of next year. So I've got Baltimore winning this one in Baltimore during week 9. So moving over to Tennessee, as I could not think there for a second. Tennessee Titans, Robert Saleh going up against Liam Cohen in his first game as head coach of the Tennessee Titans. I do like the direction that the Titans went in A, hiring Robert Saleh, B, also bringing in Brian Daboll, and C, trying to address surrounding Cam Ward with some more talent. That being said, they're not even close to the level of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Give me 6-3 for the Jags and a win in Week 10. I think that, there will be some underlying tones from, obviously, the Week 3 game last year where Saleh and Cohen, there was some audio that was leaked in terms of like, hey, what's going on here? And Saleh, said afterwards it was a kind of miscommunication on his part. So I do think that the Jaguars will look to have a bit of a statement game here after that loss to Baltimore. You are getting the extra extended advantage. Give me the win against the Tennessee Titans. Moving on to the New York Football Giants. And we talked about it yesterday during the schedule release video. I think the Giants are going to be one of these sneaky teams that not a lot of people are considering to potentially compete for a playoff spot in the NFC. I really do think they're going to be much improved under Harbaugh. And while I don't necessarily love their immediate offensive and defensive coordinators, I still think talent-wise and with a new, just kind of outlook and a new fresh face in the building, they're going to be rejuvenated. I'd expect them to be 8 or 9 wins. And I do have one of those coming against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think in East Rutherford on the road, this is going to be one of those kind of maybe look-ahead matchups for Jacksonville where you've got Tennessee 2 times in 3 weeks. Are they going to be necessarily the most locked in on both those matchups? I have the Jaguars falling to the New York Football Giants in this one. We'll get back to more of the schedule release, but we've actually got 2 sponsors on today's show, and one of those is our wonderful friends over at SeatGeek. SeatGeek, today's show is made possible by SeatGeek. Use code CHAT10 to get 10% off your next set of tickets. MLB is in full swing. The NBA and NHL playoffs are here, and you can now get World Cup tickets on SeatGeek, and the NFL schedule is officially released, and SeatGeek is the best place to go if you want tickets to a Jaguars game. I will be here in studio covering the Jaguars throughout the 2026 NFL season, but if you guys want to go to a Jaguars game, use our friends over at SeatGeek to get that done. The Jaguars take on both the Eagles and Texans overseas in London, so even if you're international, you can go to Jaguars games, but to kick off Jacksonville's season, the Jaguars will be taking on the Browns at home, and you can get tickets with SeatGeek for as low as $161. Whether it's a ball game, concert, or any other event, SeatGeek is the place to go as they have your back when purchasing tickets. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots as they mean good, red dots mean bad. Use code CHAT10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code CHAT10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and to have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. All right, getting into Week 12 now. You get another matchup against the Tennessee Titans. If the Jaguars were to win against the Giants in this hypothetical scenario, I do think this could be kind of a sleeper spot before heading into Week 13 against the Chicago Bears. However, with that loss to the New York Giants, I have the Jaguars sweeping the Tennessee Titans and going 7-4. And I think from a Jaguars fan's perspective, look, anytime that the Titans and some of these other teams that are kind of lower in the season, they're going to have opportunities to improve their roster, and they aren't just going to make the jump, though, as you see on screen, from 3 wins to 7, 8, 9, or 10. I doubt it. I mean, Saleh is going to be an improvement for them. I just don't see them being at the same level as Jacksonville was last year or this upcoming year, so give me the Jaguars to handle the Titans pretty handedly. Then moving into that Week 13 matchup we were talking about earlier against the Chicago Bears. These two teams had both really good levels of success last year that they hadn't had in previous seasons. And Ben Johnson and company with Caleb Williams, I think they're only going to build off the momentum that they had last year. And unfortunately, I have the Jaguars falling to the Chicago Bears and making it 7-5 on the year. I think that if you're Jacksonville, the question you have to ask yourself is, going into a matchup like this against some of the NFL's elite, on the road, it's just always going to be tough, especially December 6th. In that cold weather element, how much are the Jaguars going to be apt and ready to go into a hostile environment like Chicago, Illinois, and go up against a Bears team that I think will be slightly improved to where they were last year. I think it's a tall ask. Not saying that's an impossible, but I do have the Jaguars falling to the Chicago Bears in Week 13. But then it gives you a little bit of extra time to get ready for Monday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where we'll see if Aaron Rodgers ultimately suits up for the Steelers this upcoming year in 2026. I think if I had to bet at this current moment, I would lean Aaron Rodgers is the Steelers' starting quarterback in Week 14. That being said, doesn't matter. I think the Jaguars are a better team. I've got them winning this Week 14 matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In Jacksonville, at home, like I said, that extra bit of rest, the Steelers will have more than likely as well, but I think that, the Steelers are kind of in this weird transitional year with Mike McCarthy, no longer with Mike Tomlin as their head coach. I don't know if they're going to be quite buttoned up in terms of like what their final form will be under the Mike McCarthy era. And I think the Jacksonville Jaguars retain their offensive coordinator, retain their defensive coordinator, and just being the more complete team, bringing everybody back, I give them the slight advantage in Week 14. Then you travel to Houston to take on the Houston Texans. Week 15 matchup here, another AFC South matchup. You're not going to get a clean sweep against the AFC South. I do have the Jaguars falling to the Houston Texans and going 5-1 in the division, which is still a really good mark. But that being said, on the road, late in the year, the Texans are going to be fighting for their playoff lives, and I think that home field advantage, I think the Texans have a lot of good things going for them. They, like I mentioned earlier, they improved their offensive line defensively. They extended Will Anderson Jr. Danielle Hunter, I still think, is one of the better pass rushers in all of football. And D'Amico Ryans is going to have this unit firing on all cylinders, and I think they'll be one of the better defensive units in all football. Again, the question is, what level of quarterback play are you going to get from C.J. Stroud? We'll ultimately wait and see, but I still like G-Law for the long term, just not in this matchup particularly. Then you get to Week 16, Sunday Night Football, one of three, or the final of three primetime matchups scheduled for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year against the Dallas Cowboys. And while I do think their defense will be better than they were last year, I got the Jaguars taking care of business in a primetime slot, going 9-6, handling the Dallas Cowboys. I think this could be an absolute shootout. Dallas, could this be the last year of George Pickens paired with CeeDee Lamb? We'll see kind of how that contract situation unfolds throughout the year. That being said, it's a kind of high ask for Dallas to be able to compete with Jacksonville's offense, given their defensive woes. I do think Caleb Downs will be a really good addition for them. I had him as my top player in this past draft class, but I do think Dallas this late in the year could be potentially not at the level that Jacksonville is currently rolling on, so give me the Jaguars to take care of business. Then you've got another NFC East matchup going against the Washington Commanders at home, and one of really just 6 kind of official home games for the Jaguars this year, as they obviously got the 2 home games designated for London. I am not a big fan of the Commanders this year. I do think that they made some really good additions. I like the Sonny Styles pickup. I like giving Odafe always a bag in for agency. Antonio Williams is your wide receiver too, I guess is fine, but he's a rookie. I just think that Washington is closer to what they were last year than what they were 2 years ago. And I do think Jane Daniels is still dynamic and still make things happen. But as a complete roster, I'm not sure how well Washington is constructed to compete in the NFC East, much alone with some of the Titans in the NFL. And I think the Jaguars kind of have a noticeable gap here as we sit here today. I have the Jaguars taking care of business against Washington. Following it up with a Week 18 matchup in Indianapolis. The Colts haven't won in Jacksonville in however many days it's been now. It's been actually pretty impressive how much the Jaguars just kind of have a stranglehold over the Indianapolis Colts in terms of handling business in Duval County. Doesn't even matter where it is. I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to kind of come back down to earth and maybe even potentially look to move on at the quarterback spot next season. Give me the Jaguars to win this one, finishing 11-6, which, again, it's not 13 wins that you got last year, but I don't think the Houston Texans are going to get more than that. I have them at 10 wins. This kind of regular season scenario that we've drawn out here in May, which, again, it's early. We'll see how the offseason develops and then as we get into the season. But I think the Jaguars win the AFC South at 11-6. As we kind of recap my predictions here, I've got them winning against the Cleveland Browns before losing to the Denver Broncos on the road in Week 2, followed up by back-to-back wins against the New England Patriots and the Cincinnati Bengals before losing to the Philadelphia Eagles in London, and then getting the upper hand in Houston with that extra advantage of being overseas for a week against the Houston Texans. So that's a win, followed up by beating the Colts at home. They're not beating the Jaguars in Duval County, so that's a win. Then have them losing on a short week to the Baltimore Ravens on the road, Thursday Night Football, a loss. beating the Titans twice in 3 weeks while splitting a Giants loss in there. So I think Giants could be kind of one of those sneaky trap games for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I do have them losing that one. I also have them losing to the Chicago Bears at during week 13, I should say, on the road before getting a win against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football, losing to the Houston Texans in Houston, and then rounding out the 2026 season with 3 straight wins against the Cowboys, Commanders, and Colts. And I'll ask you guys this point blank. Are the Jaguars postseason bound? Are they making the playoffs? Type Y for yes, type in for no, and give me your reason down below in the comments section. I have the Jaguars winning the AFC South again, and I think they're going to be one of the top teams in the AFC. This group that really kind of shook the NFL world up last year, I don't think that it's just going to go away. I'm not saying they're one-hit wonder by any stretch. I think the Jaguars, you bring back Trevor Lawrence, you have 3 really good wide receivers that are now in your offseason program for a full year now. We'll see which one emerges as the wide receiver one. I think the combination of Bashal Tutin, Chris Rodriguez handles your rushing attack with really good brevity. Brenton Strange out of the tight end room. We'll see kind of how much they use multiple tight end sets with the pick of Nate Borkature to kind of help out that offensive line. So I really like the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, you add in some youth at Albert Regis to that defensive line that the Jaguars, really needed to go into the next season. Yes, you lose Devin Lloyd, but the combination of Foye Oluokun and Ventrell Miller, I think, can more than, make up for that loss. And then the secondary, you have Travis Hunter there as your cornerback one, alongside Buster Brown, Eric Murray, Antonio Johnson holding it down. This team is loaded. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. This Jaguars team is still one of the best in the National Football League, and I think they're going to repeat as AFC South champs. That'll be it for this episode of Jags Now, and let me know your record predictions down below in the comments section, and I appreciate you guys sticking around. It's May. A lot of things can happen between now and the start of the season, but I just wanted to give you guys my official record predictions. But yeah, try to change my mind. I dare you that the Jacksonville Jaguars won't repeat as the AFC South champs. That'll be it for this one, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out.